Hey guys, I'm Tim Langston with Red Dog Bushcraft, and today I thought we would take a look at the Pathfinder Knife Shop, or PKS, basic bushcraft knife. Now this knife starts out with a piece of 3/16 inch thick 1095 high carbon steel. It's full tang, runs completely through the scales. Heat treat is fantastic. Has a high Scandinavian grind to make up for the thickness to allow it to still carve and process well. The blade is 5 inches long. The overall length of the knife is 9 7/8 of an inch long. It has a 90-degree spine. The scales are in walnut, pinned in the front, lanyard hole in the back, and it's very nicely tapered so that there's no rough spots on the pins or the lanyard hole or across the top. No place to give this knife any hot spots. Now this is the rounded type scales on this knife, not like a lot of their other knives that have that finger notch in the front. And on this particular knife it works extremely well. It's kind of like Jamie says, it's like a broomstick, that no matter how you hold it, it seems to fit your hand and fill the hand very well. The knife comes in at 8 ounces and it had a polished blade when I got it. Now it's the time of year that we're processing up some walnuts, so I started to get some patina on the blade, and I just cleaned up the cutting edge with a strop. I did force a little bit of the patina on it, but it's because it started to patina on its own, and I decided that with this knife, instead of trying to keep it nice and shiny and polished up, since I know this is going to be one that I'm using quite often, especially in the saltwater environment that I'm in, I was going to go ahead and force that patina and let the natural patina take place at the same time. So if you notice it's a little bit darker in this video, that's the reason why. I really like the way it's patinaing out, and it looks like it's going to do the job of protecting that blade very well. Now the other way I protect this blade is just a light coat of either, you know, when I cut my fat back or my bacon, I just rub that grease on there, or a little bit of olive oil. And if I'm going to put it up for a while and not use it, use a little bit of beeswax on it, and that'll help protect it. Now I purchased this knife without a sheath, and they have several different sheath options that you can get. This is a Pathfinder sheath that I already had, and it's very similar to the one that you can buy off of their website. As a matter of fact, you can buy this sheath off their website. It fits the knife very well. I like it better than the one that they actually recommended. This particular sheath is nice and thick. It's just a basic bushcraft sheath, but you can look on their website and they have several different options, from Kydex to Kydex and leather hybrids, and a couple of different sheaths that will fit that knife. But they sell their knives separate, and that allows you to decide what type of sheath option you want, or if you want to make your own or have a private individual make it. So let's look at how this knife performs in some actual tasks. Now I have a nice piece of, this is a tulip poplar, and it's got some knots in it, and we're going to baton right through these knots. Instead of turning it away from the knots, we're actually going to baton through those. And any of you that watch my videos know that I'm not real big on batoning. I believe in carrying an axe, but it's always a good test of a knife. Check for the durability and the strength and the way the taper is, if it cuts well or not. So let's go ahead and set this, and then baton it on through. Alright, we checked out on that knot. That's okay. We'll just step back a little bit and do it again. That knot is being mean. Well, maybe we'll have to come over here. There's another knot on this side, and we'll try this one. And we'll come back this way. Turn that over, come back this way a little bit. Wow. It is one mean piece of poplar. But that's the reason we chose it, is because it would be tough. Set it. Split it right down. Just carve that off a little bit, get rid of that bark. Not bad, but I'm gonna tell you what, that was a tough piece of wood with all those knots in it. But even so, I mean, think about it. We've got a piece of 3/16 inch steel with that Scandinavian grind. It's acting like a wedge. That's going to cut right through there. Let's try it with a piece of that same tree. This is a limb off of it, and see how she does at producing some feathers. Feather sticking is a great way, reducing the size of your material if you're trying to start a fire. Something a lot of us like to do when we're practicing our firecraft. It's important that a good bushcraft knife be able to do that. Alright, so that's some pretty good feathers in a relatively short amount of time. I don't think anyone would complain about that. We could keep that up for a little while. But you know, in my area, it's fatwood that rules. And what we need out of a knife to process fatwood, that 90-degree spine comes in very handy, because we can produce what we like to, well, it's kind of a technical term, but we like to call it little fuzzies. And we take that 90-degree spine and start cutting down this fatwood a little bit and producing those real fine stuff, finer than sawdust, acting in a method almost like a cabinet scraper, working off of those edges, really opening up a lot of surface area. So that's one task that we like, and we've got a pretty good pile of those right quick. One of the other things that we like to do, you know, even though a knife and its grind will feather sticks, we also need to get in here and be able to process some very small feathers to do that fine intricate work. If we were carving, or even during our firecraft, it's important to be able to increase the surface area. And to do that, you need a knife that can get some very fine stuff going. Now, once you start getting up above 1/8 of an inch, 3/16 and 1/4 inch knives, even if it has a good cutting edge on it, a lot of times it's just too steep, and it doesn't allow that real fine carving work, at least not easily. It's not something you can pick up and just do. A lot of times it takes a lot of practice. But with this knife, it's not like that at all. It lends itself to doing fine carving tasks very well. Now, once we have all of our little fuzzies here, we need to be able to start a fire with that. And to do that, once again, in case you don't have a striker, I like to be able to use the back of my knife and produce the amount of heat and material off of that ferro rod right down into that tinder and get a fire going without using up a lot of your ferro rod. All right, we'll get rid of that. Put that out. Another thing that we like to do is be able to use our knife as a flint and steel. Now if your heat treat is right on a piece of 1095, it can make a great steel for a flint and steel fire. So let me grab a piece of char cloth and we'll see how we can do with that. Okay, so I got me a small piece of char here. We'll fold that over. Set that right on top of our flint. This is actually a gun flint. Take our knife and holding it, being careful here. Had a piece. There we go. So we can use our knife as our flint and steel set in the event of an emergency. Okay, good to know. Important part of a good woods running knife. So one more thing that I like to do is when I'm out, one of my favorite foods to carry with me is bacon. And when you've got a good knife and you can practice all of your wood skills, one of the other things that we need to be able to do is process our food. And if it can do all the tasks that we were talking about, and you can use it to do some fine slicing like this, you know that grind is in the right angle to allow you to process up some nice bacon slices. And I like that a lot. So let's cut that off. Put that right in the frying pan. Okay, so where do I see this knife really shining through? It would be just like the name implies, bushcraft, or campcraft, or practicing your firecraft. Anytime you go into the great outdoors that you want to start working with wood, I think this would be a great sheath knife to have on your side, especially if you were to pair that knife up with something like a good quality multi-tool like this Leatherman Wave, or maybe a Swiss Army knife, or even something as simple as this 3-bladed pocket knife. Something that you could use for those finer tasks that you want around camp. This would be a combination that would be real hard to beat. Thanks for joining me for this review. I certainly enjoyed bringing it to you. I'm Tim Langston with Red Dog Bushcraft, home of global safety and survival. Until next time, God bless.